All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Heifer Ranch in Perryville, Arkansas. My name is Tyler Pearson, and I will be helping host the stream today. I'm joined by my colleague, Sean Pacera. Going to be answering all your questions and talking about everything that's going on here at our 3-acre certified organic market garden. We are in USDA Agricultural Zone 7B, just so you know. Temperatures today are around 68 degrees. It's lovely, it's sunny, the garden is really looking really good, so we can't wait to show it to you. Just right off the bat, I want to let you know that anytime anyone has any questions, please feel free to chat in the comment box, and I'll be monitoring your questions and relaying those to Sean as time allows, and we will do our absolute best to answer as many of them as possible. If at any time the stream loses connection, you know, we are remotely live streaming outside. We don't have Wi-Fi coverage everywhere. So if at any time the stream seems to lose connection or lose quality a little bit, just bear with us, stay on the page, and we'll get it right back up. If you notice issues with your home internet or wherever you're watching the stream from, just refresh the page and it should help bring the stream up to speed for you. So we're going to jump right into things today. I'm going to turn it over and start talking with Sean, and we're going to show you everything that we are growing in the garden today, and let you know about what we have planned for the future. Again, if you have questions, feel free to please ask, and it'll help make the stream more enjoyable and interactive and engaging for everybody. So, Sean, how's it going?
It's going good.
Awesome.
Yeah, the weather makes it really pleasant to be outside farming right now.
It sure does. So what do you want to talk about today? We got a lot going on in the garden. We're growing some flowers. We got a few tomatoes still playing out. Huge blocks of carrots, turnips, cabbages, your staple fall crops, what a lot of people think of as fall crops here. So let's just jump right into it and show folks what's been going on.
Yeah, so today our team's been harvesting greens, so we'll talk a lot about our greens. We've cultivated our root crops like Tyler's talking about, these big plantings, and then we're harvesting our winter squash today. So these were planted back in July, butternut squash. So we'll finish up over there. We'll just walk around really the whole market garden. Start with flowers, like you said, cabbage, tomatoes, greens, and then we'll look in the tunnels too. We'll talk a little bit about what's growing right now, and then also what we're still planting for the rest of the year. We're trying to harvest and start seeds almost every single week of the year. Deep into winter and even through the summer. So let's get started.
Awesome. That's a good looking butternut squash too.
Thank you.
How many pounds do you think you'll harvest out of that? What is it, a 1/4 acre block we planted?
It's a 1/4 acre block. I think we'll get 2,000 pounds maybe, which is less than what I was hoping for. But I think we had some early disease issues. They got planted when we got hit with all that rain after like a really long dry spell. And so I think that might have been a factor in it. Right now, our flowers are mostly kind of, make sure I don't stand in ants. Make sure they're mostly kind of played out.
Get a little closer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our zinnias are pretty much wrapping up. They're looking pretty bad. But we planted these in late April, and we've been picking them steadily. At least 200 to 300 stems every week since then. So they've really put out a lot of flowers for us, which is great. And celosia, the basil's going to seed, sunflowers are done. We are still producing dahlias, and we'll probably do those in a bigger and bigger way each year. They propagate from tubers, so we'll dig up the tubers and then divide them and then plant them in the late summer next year, and try and have dahlias would be mostly our fall flower crop. So yeah.
So what are the ones, the really colorful ones back there?
These are celosia, and this, I think it's pampas plume is the type, and it's a mix of different like yellows, oranges, and reds and pinks.
But these are mostly played out. Looks like, are they?
Yeah, they're starting to go to seed. We let them go because they're attracting a lot of pollinators right now. So this is a really important time of the year for bees and pollinators to stock up for the winter. So there's a bunch of honeybees on the basil, there's a bunch of wasp and native bees on the celosia. So we're gonna leave them as beneficial.
So when you take all these flowers out, what did you say will go in behind them?
This will just be flowers again next year. So this is basically just our summer flower block. And our rotation is just basically moving the the sunflowers will be where the celosia were, the celosia will be where the zinnias were. So I don't work them into the rest of the farm.
So it is important to rotate your flower crops just like you would your vegetable crops?
I think so, just to move things around. It's not so much with, like in market gardens, it's not so much about disease management, in that most diseases and pests can walk the 5 feet over to where, it's more so about like nutrient extraction. And so the pest and disease come around whenever you're only planting corn, or you're only planting sunflowers in one spot year after year after year, and they extract all their nutrients that plant in particular needs, and then that's when they get stressed and you get disease issues and things like that. So it's just for balancing our soil health.
Okay, looking good.
Yeah.
And you do have a hive right over here, right, for your bees?
Those are empty this season, so
okay.
we may get some swarms in there next spring.
Awesome. So just real quick, I want to jump in here and give a shout out to some of our viewers. I want to say hey to Old Hickory from Middle Tennessee, Gabby Lavario from Richardson, Texas, Jason from Indiana, Joe Jones from Little Rock, Carolyn Freich out of, well, she didn't say where she's from, but thanks for tuning in for us today. And she has a question about kale, wants to know how to dry it. We're going to get to our kale here in just a little bit, so stay tuned in the live stream, and we'll be sure to jump back to your question about kale. All right, moving on.
Yeah, let's go into the cabbage, and then we'll take a look at the tomatoes.
Okay. So are cut flowers a big part of your operation? Do you sell a lot of them? How do your customers like them?
Yeah, we're going to be doing more and more of them, and what we're trying to do is hit niche markets that other farmers aren't currently satisfying, or at times where it makes sense for our vegetable production. So like early spring tends to be a gap for vegetable production, like February, March, because all your winter crops you've sold all your root crops. Anything you've planted in January won't be ready until March or April. And so having flowers like daffodils, tulips, peony, poppies, ranunculus, anemones, I think those will hit like an early market for flowers. But folks doing zinnias and sunflowers and the typical summer cut flowers aren't really hitting. And then we'll shift over to veggies. And then the summer tends to be kind of a break for us on the vegetable production, like August. And so we want to hit a second round of flowers then, and then like finish up with the dahlias in the late fall. So
Gotcha.
We're just trying to find kind of the niche where we can fit into the current market, where there could be some need and satisfy that, but in a way that works with our production system. So our summer flowers, they're kind of in their own little space, but the tulips and things like that that'll be planted, we're actually starting seeds or planting bulbs this month. Will be in our greenhouse, and those will be followed by things like peppers and tomatoes.
Awesome. Real quick, hey Cheryl and Pat from Santa Barbara, they're tuning in. Want to say hey to you guys. We miss you too. There's some great volunteers from that come to Heifer Ranch just about every year. Say hi to Elijah from Kenya. Thanks for tuning in. Nkrumah Howell, growing at Love Blossom Farm in Georgia. And Jerry Cantu from San Antonio. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. So cabbage.
A lot of cabbage.
This is looking great. I remember being down in the nitty gritty a few weeks ago and planting these things by hand, and they have come a long way.
Yes, that is hopefully on the horizon, is to have a more mechanized way of transplanting. So those are some of the tools we're working on as we scale, that we see that there's a need for, that like a big tractor cultivator or transplanter is just out of the price range for most small farmers. So we're seeing the need for tools that will help us do this without having to do it all by hand. But this is different than this is more of a, not quite a row crop method, but it kind of departs from our typical market garden, raised bed, no-till, broad forking, adding compost, what a lot of people are familiar with when you hear market garden. This is more in the style of like the 30s, 40s, slightly like mechanized cultivation. So there's a tractor called a Planet Junior, and it was used to cultivate like long stretches and blocks of vegetables like this. And so it's kind of been renaissance of that sort of type of market gardening. And so we still have our market garden, you know, for the greens and stuff like that. That's 30-inch beds with compost, and you know, we broad fork it and all that kind of stuff. But for big plantings like the cabbage that we will harvest and store, or the carrots or the beets, we've actually gone to an 18-inch row system. So we just plant in strips every 18 inches. And that allows us to get in there with a tractor and cultivate it, a small walk-behind tractor.
And we'll show folks that a little bit later, right?
Yeah, to me, that's been such a game changer for us, because we could have never have done this if we were like doing the 30-inch bed system. Because whenever we got some help from Tyler and a few of the other staff members that helped us plant this whole block. You know, but other than that, it's really just like 3 of us, 4 of us recently. And so to maintain all this, using the tractor and getting a little more mechanized has been really important as we've scaled. So we do have some, this is a variety called Tierra. It's a smaller cabbage, like 2 to 3 pounds.
Let's take a closer look at it just so we can show some folks.
It's just starting to head up.
You said it's a smaller variety?
Yeah, it's a smaller variety. You'll get about like that big. And so what I've kind of found is like, that's really what people want when they want to cook. They don't want to have to like cut up a 6-pound cabbage and figure out how to store, you know, the 4 pounds they're not using.
Yeah, I have that same problem. There's always too much cabbage, so a smaller head would be nice.
Yeah, so we can plant them a lot tighter, and we get a smaller head, and then these will be able to be stored for about three months, and will take us through the new year. So we have a large cooler that we can store all this, and then just sell them to different CSAs, school lunch programs, things like that.
Now you're growing these organically, right? So what are you doing to monitor diseases, pests? What are you looking for? What are you doing for that?
Yeah, right now we haven't done a thing. We haven't sprayed or covered or anything like that, which is really great. This plot looked like that pasture over there just 2 years ago. And so we cover cropped it for a year and a half leading up to this planting. So we're trying to work on getting the soil healthy. Healthy soil means healthy plants, which means they don't have the pest and the disease issues as much. It still is, it's just going to happen. So our kind of strategy is an integrated pest management system. So we're looking for cultural practices. We're monitoring, spraying anything. Of course, it would have to be an organic approved pesticide. Is like our very, very last resort that we rarely resort to. So instead we might cover these up if it got real bad, like the grasshoppers have been pretty bad this year. We haven't seen a lot of damage here. Or we may spray with dipel if we see that there's evidence of a lot of worm damage on the cabbage heads themselves. Outer leaves really aren't that bad, but if they start trying to eat into the cabbage heads, then we would need to address that. But
see, Carolyn Frike asked a great question. So how are you going to store these? How long? And then I'm going to follow up with how long will they store for?
Yeah, these are not super long storing cabbages. They're like a fresh market cabbage. So like 3 months maybe pushing it. So hopefully we can sell these pretty quick. So we have other successions of cabbages. So the way that we're going to store these is we're actually just going to rip off some of the outside leaves, twist them, and keep most of the root on it. And then just put them in large bins and put them in the cooler.
And at what temperature in the cooler?
It's about 35 degrees.
Okay.
And near 100% humidity.
Gotcha.
So it makes the cabbage think that it's just winter already. They're like, oh, just go dormant. Because a cabbage is a biennial. So it wants to grow during the summer, and then it'll go dormant. That head protects the what will be the flower, and then in the spring it will open up and then flower. So it's meant to go through the winter. But some cabbages will go like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. And those are some of the red storage cabbage we have here. And then we have some rutabaga, and then another round of these green tierras. So, you know, we can start selling these, and then those will wrap up about a month after these.
Awesome. So Carolyn, hope that answers your question. We've got another question from Jason Lazelle. What month is the best time to plant fall cabbage, and how do you store your harvest to keep it fresh? So we talked about storage already a little bit. 35 degrees Fahrenheit. High humidity near 100 at 100%.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as close as humid as you can get it. Almost.
Right, and you're going to leave the roots on the plant while it's in storage. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll just kind of twist it, and like whatever comes up, comes up. So it might be like a little chunk.
Is there a particular reason for that?
It just helps it store a little bit better. Like
Gotcha.
instead of, if you cut the plant in half, then it doesn't really think it's going into storage. It thinks it's been eaten.
Right.
Or you know.
Okay. And then as far as, you know, we're again in plant hardiness zone 7B. So what month is the best time for this zone to plant?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends. Like we planted these, I don't remember what day that was. That might have been in the middle of August that we planted these.
Sounds right.
So they're starting to head up now. They'll be ready to harvest in a month, and then we'll still have another several weeks before we get into like deep winter.
Yeah, that's when we planted this big field, and then like you said, we're doing succession planting.
Yeah.
So we're planting a little bit at a time so that we can harvest a little bit at a time, and it's not all ready at once.
Yep.
So you can I mean, there's a fairly nice window for planting.
Yeah, so we struggle here because it's like we have, like our winters will get pretty cold. You know, we'll get freezing temperatures and snow occasionally. But our summers can be scorching too. So August might be when you need to seed like things like our carrots and our beets, but it's just so hot that the seeds don't want to germinate. But if you wait any longer, then you start running up against your like an early frost in early November that will really slow them down. They won't size up, and
So you just got to make sure you have enough time before that first real hard frost date.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you got to make sure. Yeah, so you're watching your frost date.
If you're growing outside in an uncovered environment like this, right?
Yeah. You can push it back for if you're in a tunnel. So what we do is we have what's called a water reel, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so we don't irrigate a lot. We're not running sprinklers and waters and stuff every week. There's probably just like 2 seasons out of the year where we're using a good bit of water.
Okay.
And that's like this time of year. So once we transplanted these, we were watering these like every other day to get them through that August heat. And then that first cool day of September, they like took off.
Yep, I remember that. Let's go do close up on some of these successions, because we do have a question from Holly Clark Freeman about our successions, and I want to get a little closer. It's always good for the audience to show folks just exactly what it looks like down on the ground.
Yeah.
So Holly wants to know, you know, how far apart she wants to know how far apart did we space our successions? And was this field just completely empty? I know you mentioned the cover crops before.
Yeah.
So
it was a pasture like 2 years ago, and then I tilled it under. I planted winter rye, and then I tilled that, and then I planted Sudan grass, and then I tilled that, and then I did crimson clover. And the crimson clover we crimped. Like we bent the stems, it kills the plant, and then we covered it with tarps. And then after that we did a very light tillage because we didn't want to kick up more weed seeds, weed seeds. And then we planted.
So a lot of work went into before planting, and this field it didn't just sit empty.
No, it didn't just sit empty. It took 1.5 years of planting and putting in cover crops, and
because this is the first time you really planted in this area,
yeah,
right?
Like whenever we took the initial soil sample for this, it had only like 1% organic matter in it, and our garden has like 4, on its way to 5, and so. And all the nutrients were just super, super low. It was very below optimal. And so it did take some work to get the soil right. Doing the cover cropping, using the tarps, and then using the tillmore to cultivate, you know, I can't see like a tall weed in there. And we have not gone through and like hand weeded this or anything.
Okay. Great question, Holly. I hope that answers your questions. Hey, Dana Downs, welcome. I see the stream connection dropped a little bit. It should be coming back. And we're going to check out our tomatoes now. So these are, well, I'll let Sean tell you about them.
All right. So these are kind of an experiment for us. We had just let our tomato production kind of dwindle down in the summer months. And so instead this year we had our heirlooms producing, and as they started to slow down,
get down here and check them out. They look beautiful.
They look great. We had started to put in this variety. This is a determinate variety, which means that let's
go down.
Go down a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. Connection's dropping a little bit.
But those tomatoes look so good down there.
Okay, I think we're better if you find some more that you want to show.
Yeah.
Okay.
The disease is getting pretty bad. So the so we planted this variety. It's a heat-setting tomato variety.
Nope, I'm not zero. Sorry, get out of the tunnel. Sorry.
That's fine.
Hey, sorry folks. I know the connection is a little spotty in this tunnel, so we're gonna find a better spot to continue the stream.
What's that?
Should be better here.
Okay. Yeah, I can pull these aside. So, yeah, there we go.
All right, folks, I think we're in a better spot now. Sorry for the delays there. So these, like you were saying, these are a determinate variety.
Yeah, they're heat setting. So normally tomatoes don't want to set fruit above 85 degrees. And so these will, like all throughout the heat of summer, these are still setting fruit. They're still loaded with fruit. Mm-hmm. The plant's late blight has come in.
Let me show that blight. Let me get a little close up just so folks can see that.
Basically killing the plant.
But the fruit's still growing for the most part.
Oops. Yeah, I mean, you can see how much fruit is still on that plant.
Yeah, wow.
As bad as the foliage looks. I mean, it's really an all-star. It's called Grand Marshal is the variety. And so we did 3 successions. So we have 3 tunnels. So a few weeks before, about a month before the tomato, we knew the heirlooms would wrap up. We planted the first round, and then 3 weeks later we planted the second round, and then this round. So we've probably, oh man, we're getting at least 300 to 400 pounds per bed, and this is 12 beds of tomatoes. I think that's about right.
So we got a great question actually. So we got 2 questions I'm going to jump to. I'm going to get Catherine Gray's question first. Best tips on enriching the soil. I think that's just a general question for all crops. I mean, we're doing cover cropping. We're using some composting.
Which we're doing less of. Like we're doing less compost because with the cover crops, you're basically creating your compost in place in a way.
So cover crops. Cool. We got another great question from Pris Metzger. And it's about pruning. I think everybody's noticing that these are not pruned. And
no, they're wild.
If we were showing the tomatoes in our other high tunnels, they would be a lot different. So why are we not pruning these determinate varieties? Yeah,
so the determinate variety means it has a determinate lifespan. Like it wants to grow up, set a whole bunch of fruit, and then die, which is kind of what it's doing now, right? It's covered in so much fruit. A few weeks ago, these were up here, and they've shrunken down just because of the weight of the tomatoes. They're like forcing the plants down. So the only pruning we did is we did a little bit of pruning early on, just until the plants got above about 18 inches tall. That way there's airflow underneath the plant to try and reduce some of the disease. And then when they got above the wooden stakes, we went through with a hedge trimmer and topped them.
Why'd you do that?
So that we didn't want them to keep trying to produce. We knew that winter was coming and we wanted them to wrap up what they're doing.
Gotcha.
And then also we have another round of tomatoes in the high tunnel that's about to start.
Okay.
So we want these guys to finish up because we actually need to get all these out in the next couple weeks and get ready to plant strawberries here.
So is that going to be true for all determinate varieties, that you don't need to prune them the same way you would an indeterminate?
Yeah, correct.
For the most part?
Yeah. Like we counted on getting like 4 big set fruit clusters on each plant.
Okay.
And then once we saw the 4th one, we cut them off at the top.
Some more great questions from Christine Hernandez. Hey, Christine, thanks for tuning in with us today. She wants to know about the most challenging part of fall and winter production.
Yeah, I think trying to hit the time windows is the most challenging part. So what I was saying earlier about August heat being so just beating us down and drying out the soil so quickly, and it seems like you couldn't put the sprinklers on long enough. But you have to get as many seeds that you're planting to germinate as quickly as possible, push them through that heat, because winter is about to come in, and if they're not sized up before November 15th, like you're not going to be able to sell them.
Right. And
so it feels like a race.
Yeah, and then you're dealing with usually pretty rapidly changing weather conditions in our climate zone, especially. You know, I remember we were trying to plant everything by September, and it just kept raining, and the ground was so wet. So
Yeah, and I'm even feeling a little bit nervous because we got things in a little bit later because the hurricane that we had a few weeks ago, we got a bunch of rain from that. I think we got like 8 inches or something like that. And so we couldn't get into the fields to plant, and that was my ideal plant date. I had to wait over a week to do that.
So we got a lot of great questions coming in. Do you want to keep taking them, or you got something else you want to?
Do you want to keep walking down to the market garden?
Yeah, and just 1 second. I'm going to answer Pat. Yeah, we can go ahead. I want to answer Pat Walker's question. I'll take this one. So she wants to know how these Grand Marshal tomatoes taste. And Pat, I'll be happy to report that they're delicious.
They are really good.
They have a really like robust and earthy tomato flavor. They're not like, they don't taste like watered down like some tomato varieties. They make excellent canning tomatoes, slicing tomatoes. I mean, they're a really, really good all-around tomato. I love them.
Yeah, I was surprised. They seem like they're tough. Like they're meant to be able to ship. But like once they ripen up and turn fully red, they're like so delicious sliced on a sandwich. And then when we canned some at home, and I was amazed the amount of like meat you got versus how much water content is in them. If you try and can an heirloom tomato, it's just like 90% water.
I did a lot of that this summer, and it is a lot of water for sure. Couple more questions. Jason Lazelle wants to know, what crops do you prefer to grow in your tunnels in the winter months? That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the winter months will look like changing over from the peppers and tomatoes into kale, spinach, arugula. We do a baby kale, and then a bunch of lettuce is most of what we'll have. And then this year we'll have tulips, anemones, and ranunculus. So
and why do you choose those crops for your tunnels? Because tunnels, you know, for those who may not be aware, that's your sacred space. That's where you want to put your best crops, right? Because that's where they're going to grow the best. You have the best conditions. So why do you choose those?
Yeah, so the greens work really well in the tunnels. One, because they're cleaner. Without the rainfall like kicking the mud up onto the leaves of the plant, they're just really clean. They're easy to wash. I love it. It also, like, using a tunnel like that bumps you down a whole USDA zone. So inside that tunnel, we're more like a zone 8, which is like down on the Texas coast. And then those crops specifically can handle frost really well, or like freezing temperatures. So the tunnel gives you heat during the day. You'll get some protection at night, but it's not really meant to keep all cold temperature out unless you're like forcibly heating it, which we don't do. You know, we're not trying to grow tomatoes in December kind of thing.
Awesome. So another great question, Nkrumah Howell wants to know about, we talked about cover crops. Which cover crops have you used? What do you like and why?
We really like crimson clover, really like Sudan grass in the summer if you can spare the space of a summer plot. It gets real tall, puts a lot of organic matter. Winter rye is our go-to because we can wrap up like the storage radishes or the beets or something like that. We can harvest those in the winter and still seed the rye, the winter rye. It'll grow all winter and then put lots of organic matter into the soil. Vetch is another really good one. So the vetch and the clover are adding nitrogen, the grasses are adding organic matter and bringing up nutrients that are deep within the soil.
Awesome. Great answers. So let's talk about this block here. It's a little different than some of the other blocks. We got multiple crops in this block. What are you growing here, and why do you have it set up like this? Yeah,
so what I kind of found, like doing the 18-inch rows of like our beets and carrots and cabbages.
I'll show that. So this is an example of what he's talking about. These are all beets, right?
These are all beets. 3 different varieties of beets. This is kind of an all-in, all-out system. So I seeded these all on the same day. I got the soil ready, like all in one day, and we're gonna harvest them all over the course of like a few days, and then wash them and pack them. And the reason we do that is because now we can sell product from an inventory. So we have a large enough cooler to where we can put all this stuff in boxes ready for the customer, and it can sit in that box for 4 months and still be just as fresh as the day it went in. And all we gotta do is pull it out of there and deliver it. Getting all this out of the way, and once too, I can cover crop that for the winter, or cover it with the tarps. The market garden back over here, like I kind of found like I needed a catch-all place to be able to throw in a bed of kale, throw in a bed of fennel, throw in a bed of lettuce here and there without trying to do this big all-in, all-out system.
And it's because of our market opportunities available in this region.
Yeah,
right?
it's based on our markets.
Yeah. So we don't have huge farmers markets that we sell at every single week with, you know, tons of customers coming in and buying stuff. We're doing more wholesale kind of stuff, and these storage varieties work a little bit better.
Yeah, the storage varieties work really well for the institutional accounts. So things like colleges or school districts. They also work really well for the retailers. We'll put our baby carrots into like a little zipper bag with a Heifer label on it. And that's great for a small family-owned grocer to where someone can just come in and grab something off the shelf. If it doesn't sell that week, it'll be sold the next week. Versus like bunch carrots really need to move really quickly. And so our baby greens and things like that, this is basically the quantity we need to satisfy our retail customers.
Gotcha. So let's take a look at a couple of these beds a little bit closer up, just to show people how they're looking.
Yeah.
And what your thoughts are about them. This is arugula.
Yeah, this is arugula. It's getting a little bit past baby arugula size.
Oh, this baby arugula.
Baby arugula.
Not anymore, yeah.
Yeah, it's like teenage arugula, leaving for college arugula. But this is actually, we've already cut this twice, like down to the ground, and it has come back. It's come back every single week.
So you can cut and come again arugula. Yeah.
Yep, and our baby kale. So what we do is we start, this is in paper pot trays. So the plants are actually seeded in these little paper pots. And so because we're organic, we have to pull these out of the garden at the end of when we're done harvesting this, we have to pull these out and remove them. They're working on organic certified ones that are made of hemp. And so we plant it, and then within probably 2 or 3 weeks, it's ready to cut. And then after we cut it, it's ready almost every week. We'll get at the most 3 cuttings from it, and then we'll turn it under and plant something else, maybe lettuce or something. Nice. But for the market garden, this works really well to like this lettuce we've harvested, and so I can flip that, and I could harvest out the rest of that crop, broad fork it, put a little bit of compost down, and plant it the same day. And it's just like one little bed. So it's almost like this thing is a miniature version of that whole 1/4 acre block. So I can just focus on each bed as its own little planting area. And so this works really well.
So real quick question from Richard Martin. Wants to know about the types of tarps that we use. Silage tarps, right?
Yeah,
Farmer's Friend?
Yeah, they're silage tarps. They're what like farmers up north would use to cover silage and hay through the winter. They're a panda plastic, so it means it's black on one side and white on the other side. And that I think is really important for us because I can use that strategically. Like in the summer, if I want to kill something.
You keep talking, I'm going to show them. They can hear you fine.
Okay. In the summertime, if I want to, kill like a really weedy field, I can put that black side up, and it'll get to like 150, 160 degrees under that tarp. And we'll just smoke those weeds in a week or so.
And that's what you're doing right now. You got the black side up.
Yep.
Heating that ground up.
That's getting ready for strawberries. And then if I want to help germinate something like in the summertime, I want to get all the weeds to come up so that I can flip that plastic back over. I put the white side up first. The weeds will germinate underneath it because it's cooler and it's humid. And then once all those weeds have come up and start to germinate, then I'll flip it over. And it'll just obliterate them. It's great.
So we have a question about harvesting this arugula. Do you want to go down to the tools maybe?
Sure, yeah.
Because we use the greens harvester, right?
We're doing it actually by hand now.
So Carolyn, to answer your question, we're harvesting this arugula by hand.
So we are going to try the greens harvester this afternoon, just since this is a little bit bigger. I typically don't use the greens harvester unless I'm doing things that are direct seeded. In like really tight rows. So like our spinach we'll use the greens harvester for. This bigger stuff is just a little bit harder to use on that. But doing it by hand just allows you to be a little more accurate, that you're not getting like too much stems. Like I don't like when I get a baby kale and it's like the leaf is this big and the stem is like that long. No one wants that in their salad. So it allows us to be a little bit.
You want to show?
I don't have the drill on it.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, let me grab it real quick.
Okay. So we'll show you guys the greens harvester tool that we use. It's not fully set up right now, but give you an idea of how it works. Yeah,
so this comes from Farmer's Friend. you just put a power drill, like just a standard drill right there. And as that turns, that blade moves, and then the ropes will spin and then throw the greens into the bag. And then you can empty them.
So did you use that on this?
No, we did this by hand.
Okay, gotcha.
Just because they are bigger, and like I was saying, I want to keep as much of the stem out as possible.
Let me show that down here.
Like you don't want to, if you cut it too low, like, and getting like leaves like that. So we try and cut it by hand to where we can get just the tip of the leaf. It really gets it better quality, better quality product.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But yeah, generally you just move that greens harvester along, and it would cut right there. But what I would just use that for a single cutting, something like the baby spinach that I'll do 10 rows in a single bed. We'll probably cut it once, and then we'll till it under and do something else.
Okay. So we got some people that are liking these tools. Why don't we show them some more?
Yeah.
We got several tools set out to show you guys that we're going to be using this fall. And some of these are the highlights. So we talked about the green harvester. And
yeah, let me open this door real quick.
We're going to show you some irrigation equipment, some cultivation equipment. So we talked about the Tillmore tractor over at the Cabbages that we use to cultivate that ground, and a few other things. So I know you love this Tillmore.
I do love the Tillmore. So the way that I get these fields ready is after a cover crop has been finished. It's either disked in and I'm even actually trying to move away from the disc and just use more like the tarps to decompose it, or run the disc where all the blades are just straight in line to where it's not flipping the soil over, it's just chopping up the plants and pushing them down into the dirt. And then after that's decomposed for a little bit, I'll run a field cultivator, which is basically just like that's my version of the big version of the broad fork. It just rips the soil, but it's not like a plow, it doesn't flip it over. After I've done that and we've gotten a rain, get more weeds up, then we'll use a power harrow on the BCS to really smooth out the field nice and smooth, and then we'll be ready to seed. So we use a Jang seeder, which is belt driven and drops a really precise amount of seeds right where we need it. This whole field is carrots, mostly baby carrots.
And they're starting to germinate. Folks might not be able to see
it'd be tough.
Everything. I'm going to get really close to show you that there are indeed carrots in this field. And you can start to see them coming up there just barely. But here in about a month, it's going to be popping.
Oh, yeah. And so then now we have a nice smooth field. We've killed all the little baby weeds. And then we'll use this bed marker to do our 18-inch rows. So this is from Two Bad Cats, and what's cool about it is that you can take these little spikes and put them on the outside, so you can mark, a 3-inch, 8-inch, and then any multiple of 3 or 8. So our standard planting for like all the brassicas is 1 foot and then 18-inch rows. So a foot in row, 18 inches between row. And then for the beets, carrots, radishes, we just take the spikes off and then just mark the bed.
Just the rows, right?
Yeah, just the rows. Overlap one wheel, and so we get a whole field that's perfectly 18-inch rows all straight. And then we kind of do something similar. This is from NeverSink Tools, and it's basically the same thing in miniature. Oh goodness, that sound. The same thing in miniature, but for raised beds. And so we use this to plant our arugula, kale, lettuce, and things like that.
For marking your lines, and then you'll run through it with the paper pot transplanter.
Yep. Or I mean, even using a hand tool, just having straight lines makes using a hoe or a cultivator just a lot easier. And then two of the other tools that kind of do double duty, and then I'll wrap up talking about the Tillmore, are these. This is a wheel weeder, or a wheel hoe. These are from TerraTech, and I really like this one. This one's 10 inches, and then this one is adjustable with two different blades on it, so I can basically run this one in the row, and then this one can go, like, the plants can go right in between, and I can set the distance here really close to get in between the plants.
And you're going to be using these for cultivation, right?
Yeah, so if you didn't have a Tillmore, you could use these in tandem and get really good weed management on a big block like this.
Gotcha.
The till more is nice because I can do like an acre and a half by myself in just the morning, and I'm trying to cultivate at least after I seed the stuff at least every week for about a month, and then after that weeds are gone, and the canopy of the vegetables closes in, and we don't have to do any.
Kind of like we saw in the cabbage. Like, you're not cultivating those bigger ones anymore because the canopy is going to shade out the weeds for the most part.
It's just early on you're trying to get rid of those weeds.
Gotcha.
So the Tillmore basically takes the job of what this is doing and makes it in a really nice walk behind fashion. So this is what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned the Planet Junior. Planet Junior was basically this really similar design back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And they stopped making them as people, you know, went for their big John Deeres and stuff. But it basically takes like really similar tools to what people would have used on like a horse-drawn machinery, and just replace the horse with the motor, and you still walk behind it, which really isn't bad at all. You know, I'm not walking super long distances. If I cultivated a full acre, it's about 4 miles. Is what that would be. To walk those rows on a full acre is about 4 miles. And so it's adjustable depth. The blades cut through the walk pads, and then these are really cool. These are called finger weeders.
Yeah, let me get a little closer up on these components so we can show everybody.
Yeah, so the dirt catches on these little metal teeth, and then these little rubber fingers push against the plants. Anything that's small gets kind of flicked out. And then oh no, lost a finger. And then anything that's larger, which would be like things you've transplanted, or the things you seeded that have gotten a head start, are fine. And so I'll try and set this. I mean, there's only about a 1.5 inch gap between these two finger weeders, so it's a pretty narrow, margin of error. Like those rows really have to be super straight, or this machine's just going to start killing the plants I transplanted.
Right. So it takes a steady hand and a good planting.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once we get everything in, on like our big blocks, we've been using.
Let me pause you just for a second. I know we got some questions coming in. So Richard Moss asked about he's from Oklahoma, asked about the size of our market garden space. This block right over here, Richard, what size is this total block?
Yeah, so all my blocks are 1/4 acre blocks. So we have about 3 acres that we're cultivating right now.
Okay, and then Holly Freeman says, home gardeners everywhere sigh with envy over some of these tools. If you're doing it on a smaller scale, not quite like this, if you're doing it at your home, maybe you don't want to invest in the Tillmore. Are there any other tools besides these other these smaller cultivation tools that you would recommend?
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up. This is this one was here when I got here, and then all I did is I got these little discs from Haas Tools.
Yeah, I've gotten some stuff from them. They're great.
Yeah.
HOSS, Haas Tools.
And so this is a hiller, a little mini hiller. So if we planted green onions or the beets or the carrots a little bit later in the season, and I'm still getting weeds in between the carrots, I can just run this thing and it throws the dirt right towards the middle to cover up those little weeds. This would be like $150.
Gotcha.
These basket weeders or wheel weeders are more like $500.
Gotcha.
And then this was $20. This was, I had a farmer friend buy this for me. It was in someone's front yard. It's just like a decoration, like in their flower bed. And it's the same thing. It's just a miniature version.
I'll get a little close up on a couple of these. Yeah, it's a miniature version of this
the Tillmore.
Tillmore, yeah.
Yeah, so
without the finger weeders, but
without the finger weeders. But he bought it for $20, and then I put new wheels on it.
Yeah. So Holly, you don't have to invest in all this fancy equipment if you're doing it on a smaller scale. There's lots of great things that you can use out there. Great questions, everybody. Thanks so much, and keep them coming.
Yeah. And so to water, now that we've gone to these bigger blocks, like getting water at the right time, especially for planting in August heat, is really important. So the market garden has these They're similar to what you may have heard called a wobbler, but these are from Netafim. They're the MegaNet series, and it has these little pop-up heads. They're called microjet sprinklers, and they spin around and they go up and down as they spin. And so we have head-to-head coverage. So this 1/4 acre has 25 heads in it. But what's nice is I've made all the sublines where I can turn off and on each line. So if I only wanted to water 3 beds, I can turn on just this line and then put these little caps that's only going to throw water in one direction. And if you go to our Facebook, we have a whole video about this system.
Or YouTube. It's on our YouTube page
YouTube
too.
as well.
Yep.
And so I really like this system for the market garden.
I think the video is called Overhead versus Drip Irrigation.
There you go.
Yep.
Because then we don't have to water the whole thing. I can just water a few beds at a time without having to set up drip line and take it in and out every time we change crops.
Now, if you need to water the whole thing, what would you use?
If we need to water the whole thing, we'd use something like this. This is the baby version. I don't even think they even make it anymore. And then there's a larger version that's up at the top of the field, but it's called a water reel, just like a fishing reel. And so what's cool about this one, and they make some that are probably 10 feet tall. They're just huge pieces of equipment. This is the baby version. It's a traveling sprinkler essentially, and it uses a turbine. So there's no power; it just uses the water pressure itself to turn a turbine and slowly reel the sprinkler back in.
So you pull this little gadget all the way out, turn it on, and it sprays just like a sprinkler head.
Yep.
And slowly, as it's running, it'll pull this back in.
Yep.
And you can effectively water the whole.
Once it gets all the way in, it'll click this little arm and turn itself off. So I can even set this and then go home for the night.
And who makes these?
This is, I think, bigsprinkler.com.
Okay.
And I think most applications for like this one is like golf course or like riding ring. I use it for vegetables, but there are ones that are specifically for vegetables, but they're just a lot more expensive. And they're powered. You have to like have gas powered and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this works for how small blocks are. This works perfect. I have to run it 3 times, basically 3 passes to water a full 1/4 acre block.
Cool. Couple quick questions. Let's see. Brackets Pantry just tuned in and wants to know about how wide the row spacing was. So all these beds over here, bracket, that we've been showing that we're using these mechanized forms of cultivation, they're 18 inches. Is that right, Sean?
Yep.
So these are all on 18-inch row spacing, and it's because, like Sean was showing you, we're using mainly this piece of equipment to cultivate this effectively. And so that's why we do 18-inch row spacing.
Yeah, so this one I think is about 10 or 12 inches, and so it goes perfectly between the rows of carrots here.
Oh yeah, that looking really, how wide is that, you said?
I think it's a 12 inch.
Okay.
So it still gives you like some room, because when we plant our carrots, I actually plant them in what's called a band. So it's a special seeder that spreads the seeds out in like a 4-inch wide band, as opposed to like straight in a line.
Great question that would take all day to talk about, but Rhonda Usher wants to know how you learned to garden on this scale. Where you pull some of your inspiration from, key sources of knowledge.
Lots and lots of trial and error. And then a lot of it was like YouTube, just like watching videos like what we're doing now. One of our apprentices said it's like the Lion King circle of life. He's like, now you're on the video. I'm like, you're right. But yeah, we're just watching videos, watching live streams, learning what other farmers are doing, and then also building a good network of farmers. There's amazing farmers here in Arkansas and through the South, and being able to just like call them and shoot them a text and develop a relationship and be like, hey, when's the right time to plant carrots? August feels like insanity, and they're like, trust me, do it. And so following the wisdom of people that are doing it longer than I've been doing it.
Yeah.
There's lots of books.
Elliot Coleman.
Great books. Yeah, John
Curtis
Martin,
Stone.
Curtis Stone. Connor Crickmore, Never Sink Farm. There's like master classes that you can get. But really, I think YouTube has probably been my biggest teacher, apart from just personal relationships and asking farmers.
So I'm going to jump in here real quick and say a couple things to add on to your question, Rhonda. So we also teach people here at Heifer Ranch. We have a residential volunteer program. You can come and live and stay and volunteer and work and learn with us in the garden for 2 months up to a year. And even with the COVID crisis, we have a lot of really good quarantining measures in place. As you can see, the folks who need to wear the mask do wear the mask. So we make it as absolutely as safe environment as possible. So anybody watching right now, if you are interested in living and learning with us here at Heifer Ranch, check us out on the web, heifer.org/USA, and you can find information for where to volunteer and submit an application there. Let's see. Going to turn it back over to question. So we've got about 10 minutes left of our scheduled time. We may hang around a little bit longer for those who want to stick with us if we still got really good questions coming in. We are going to still show you what's growing in our larger high tunnels. We've shown you the tomatoes in the caterpillar tunnels back there, but just behind, or just in front of me, behind you, is one of our high tunnels. So there's lots of really great stuff growing in there. So stay tuned if you want to go into the high tunnels with us and see what's growing. And yeah, we got a lot of questions about things that are actually growing in our high tunnels. So you guys are right on point. We're going to walk over to this high tunnel right now, and I'm going to get to one of your questions while we're doing that. So let's see. Deer defense. I've noticed a few deer tracks in here lately. What, if anything, are we able to do, and how bad is the problem for us here for deer?
It actually hasn't been too bad because we graze sheep around the front, the lower parts near the garden.
Because we are a multi-species regenerative agriculture ranch doing not just organic horticulture, but also livestock as well. So if you're interested in coming, living, learning about livestock production, regenerative agriculture, multi-species grazing, cattle, sheep, turkey, chickens, we do all of that too. Sorry to cut you off. I just want to make sure people know that.
And on grass, and
Yep, pasture raised.
Pasture raised, and so we have livestock dogs that are with the sheep, and so I think that helps deter the deer. But we have seen hoof prints. They've gotten a few of the lettuces. I think we're gonna put some radios out, maybe help. But there's suddenly a dip once like hunting season comes around.
That's true. There are a lot of hunters in this area.
There's a lot of hunters around us.
We're right next to a national, to a public lands wildlife area, so a lot of public hunters can come. So yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah, it definitely helps. So I think radios. They even have like motion detecting sprinklers that will go off in the night and just scare them.
But I think you're right about the guardian dogs too. So we have 4 or 5.
I think there's 4.
We have 4 livestock guardian dogs that protect our sheep, protect our poultry out in the pastures, and they scare me, so I'm sure they scare the deer.
Yeah, the other thing we've done with success, and we're actually talking about doing it around the market garden, is a 3D fence. So it's using 2 strands of hot wire and then a 3rd strand that's kind of out about 5-6 feet. And because deer, they're wall-eyed, they're prey animals, not predator animals, so they're looking out, they're not looking forward. They don't have depth perception. Yep. And so they can't see that it's actually, there's a distance. They think it's 3 wires like that. So they walk into the front wire and then get shocked and then
run away.
Immediately lose interest.
I know NCAT Atra has some really great resources on how to build those types of fences. And they worked. They worked for us really well last year. We just haven't set them up this year. So real quick, if you'll just point out some of the crops, or all the crops if you would, just that we're growing in here so people know.
Yeah, so these are our heirloom tomatoes. Check out our other videos that we did. This is the same tunnel that the heirlooms were in earlier in the year. So they went all the way up to those rafters and then started coming back down. We pulled them out and just followed them with another round of heirlooms. Because we only have 2 tunnels right now, that's what we're doing. But we won't plant tomatoes in here again for like another 3 years. So even though that was kind of back to back, but they're looking good. They're setting fruit already. We're trying to keep it warm in here because we want the tomatoes to set fruit and get some more heirlooms before winter. These are potatoes as an experiment we're doing for a company. These are true seed potatoes. I mean like tiny little seeds plant. So this is an experimental variety. So we're seeing how they do for southern growers doing a fall planting of potatoes. So far they look pretty good.
I'm surprised that the foliage is so big for us for a true seed variety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then I just put some green onions down the middle to where these 2 beds weren't like a total loss if the potatoes are,
Yeah.
if we don't get a lot of potatoes. And then this is ginger over here.
What?
Yeah.
Ginger?
Let's take a look.
In the south?
Because it's cool.
Get
it's
out.
really cool.
This is ginger, organic ginger in the high tunnel. I'm so excited about this stuff.
Yeah, so you can see.
Let me get real close so you guys can see the ginger root down there.
Yeah, so this is baby ginger.
Mm-hmm.
So like the ginger you get at the store is like over a year old. It's been cured, it's woody, it's dormant. This is like the young fresh stuff. In the northern U.S., we don't have the climate to grow those big, dark brown cured older ginger that you might see at the store. So this is a little bit less spicy and I think more flavorful. It's also a lot less fibrous, so you could just like really finely shave it into a dish, and you don't have to do the you don't have to peel it or anything like that. It's really great. So
Okay.
This is from Kroger. I went to Kroger, got organic ginger, sprouted it in January, and then took all the little shoots and planted this whole row from like 2 pounds of ginger.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's impressive. So we got a great question, several great questions. So Jason Lazelle is asking about cucumbers. Toward the very end, here in just a minute, we're going to get to our cucumbers and we'll talk about those, Jason. Carol Daniels, however, wants to know about the best methods for cultivating inside the high tunnels. Do you do anything different in here as opposed to out in the other fields?
Yeah. So one, we don't have a lot of weed pressure in here because we're not letting anything go to seed in here. 2, we spent the first year fighting the weeds and not letting them go to seed. And so because we're not doing a deep till, we're not putting a tractor in here and flipping the dirt over, we're not bringing new weed seeds up. And because things aren't going to seed in here or blowing in here, there's really just not a lot of weed pressure. So it doesn't take a lot to manage the weeds in a greenhouse. So we just use like a long-handled hoe, and that's about it. That's all we have to do.
Nice.
Occasionally we'll run the wheel weeder down the walk paths.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time, so let's run down to the other tunnel, and we're going to get to your question, Jason, about the cucumbers. Show you guys a few more things.
Some parsley.
And then we'll sign off here shortly. But stick with us. We're almost there. These hours always go by so quick. I don't know about you, but they just fly by. All
Yeah,
right.
so-
Wow.
Yeah, they've gotten tall, huh?
So the cucumbers, let's start there because I know Jason wanted to know about those. So this giant wall of foliage, folks, all the way up to the rafters, cucumbers. We can see a few still up here. So what variety are these?
These are, I think they're market more. So you
Market
can
more?
market more.
Mm-hmm.
So you could pick them small. You like a pickling cucumber, like that. Or you can let them get a little bit bigger, and they'll be a really good slicer.
That's right. I remember us talking about that. That you could do these for either one, and they taste delicious.
They
Man.
taste really good.
They have a really good, just strong cucumber flavor. They're nice and crunchy. I mean, they're amazing.
They're not bitter. They're
No.
just real crisp. I'm trying to think of the date we planted these. I wish I knew off the top of my head. I think it was like sometime in late July, and we had cucumbers within like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, they grew so
It was
fast.
probably, I think it was 3 weeks we got cucumbers.
Where did you get these from?
Johnny Seeds. We get almost all our seeds from Johnny Seeds. We'll probably pull all these out. I mean, you can see them hanging down there. I don't know if they can see it on the video. But we'll probably pull these down the next week or so and get ready for the winter crop. It's always painful to pull out the summer crops, but if you want to grow stuff through the winter, you got to make space. And then our peppers are basically at the end. They're getting chlorotic and getting a little unhappy with me right now.
Yeah, mine are doing the same thing at home. They're about played out. These are really tall, though. I mean, that's for a pepper plant. That's in this region. I think those are pretty big.
Yeah. They really cranked out peppers. Like we didn't get like flooded with peppers like we did the cucumbers or tomatoes. Like you don't get them all at once. It was just like a steady supply of like 100, 200 pounds every week for months. So they've been very reliable for us.
Well, that's awesome. If anybody got any last minute questions, now be the time to get them in. We're about to wrap it up here. I'm going to jump in, and sorry for spinning the camera on you. So again, we're Heifer International USA. We're located in Perryville, Arkansas. This is a 1,200 acre working ranch, guys. We got a 3-acre certified organic market garden, pasture raised, multi-species, livestock outside, everything from grass-fed sheep, cattle, turkeys, poultry. It's an awesome place. We're so excited to be able to bring you here virtually, live in real time. I know a lot of things are pretty crazy right now, and not everybody can safely travel and get out and about. We normally host a lot of in-person trainings here at the ranch. We're not doing those right now, so thanks for joining us virtually for this live stream. We try to do these as often as possible, so if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, go to heifer.org/USA or check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Subscribe to our channels and make sure you sign up for our email newsletter. We're Heifer USA across the board. We'll always notify you when we do important things. We won't bombard you with unnecessary emails. We love doing this. It's a part of our mission to help train and educate future farmers in the next generation. These live streams are a great way for us to do those right now. We hope that you've had a good experience. We hope that we've answered some of your questions. You've drawn some inspiration and learned a thing or two. We always learn from you, so thank you for sharing with us what you're doing at your home, at your garden, or your farm. And, you know, just from the team here at Heifer International USA, Sean and I both thank you very much for joining us. Spread the word about these live streams. Let's get more folks in here to learn and grow together. Couple wrap-up questions, and then we're going to sign off. Let's see. Brackets Pantry, anything that we have difficulty selling?
Difficulty selling.
In this region, in our market. So it's going to be specific to everybody's market.
Yeah, it's going to be specific to your market, and the market changes. You know, everyone wanted kale one year, you know, and then it was like, oh, I'm so sick of kale. Fennel has been a challenge. Like, I've been told by customers they really want fennel, and then I grow it, and then like people are like, maybe not. So that for some reason has been one, but like everything else, we can't grow enough of it.
Yeah.
We really need more producers in Arkansas. And we need more customers that are committed to buying local and supporting their local farmers, keeping money in their community, supporting farmers that are growing sustainably. So let's get on it.
That's great. All right. Hey, Deanne Fitzpatrick, thanks for sharing the stream and sharing us with Montana Farm to School. Jason, yes, we do live streams with our animals, and if you subscribe to our YouTube page, go to our live streams and check out the one that we did just 2 weeks ago with pastured pig production with our livestock specialist, Christine Hernandez. We have some excellent YouTube videos on pastured pig production, pastured poultry production. We did a live stream not too long ago. We covered a lot of the basics of pastured pigs. We do everything. If there's something in particular you'd really like to see, let us know. Send us a message and we'll try to cover it. All right, I think that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you so much. We're going to sign off now. Hope to see you next time. I'm Tyler Pearson.
I'm Sean Passera.
And we're with Heifer International USA. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.